I would say anything over 30 years old that hasn't had a replaced drainage system or a water supply system, that has to be something that's going to be considered as needing to be done.
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network CREPN Radio. This is episode number 86. This is the podcast where we talk about everything to do with commercial real estate. We do this through weekly conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their insight and knowledge to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Either way, if you're an experienced investor who's looking to get out, or you've been thinking about getting into investing, we're glad you're here. My name's J. Darren Gross. In just a minute, we're going to speak with Ann McClellan. Ann is the owner of Roman Plumbing of Central Florida. She specializes on working on old plumbing repair and replacement. We talk about what to look for and do before you make a purchase. But first, a couple of quick things. If you are on social media and you want to reach out and connect, look for me. You can find me. I'm on a bunch of them now. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and now Snapchat. You can find me under J. Darren Gross. That's the letter J. Darren spelled out Darrin, and Gross, Gross. And also want to remind you that if you're on LinkedIn, be sure to look up our group. It's Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. Same as the name of the podcast, Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. All right, let's get on to the show. On the line this morning, we're fortunate to have my guest. Her name is Ann McClellan. She's the owner of Roman Plumbing in Central Florida. She's a real pro and my new best friend. We've been acquainted here on property. She's on my speed dial. But Ann, welcome to the program here. And if you could, take a minute and just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your business.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Darren. My name is Ann McClellan, and I'm the owner of Roman Plumbing, like Darren said. Roman Plumbing's been around for about 10 years. This is our 10th year now. We do mainly service and residential, multifamily households, and single family. A lot of old plumbing is my specialty. I like to revive it and get it up and running again. That's kind of the history of where Roman's at.
Well, and that speaks to how we got to know each other. I know a lot of the listeners are investors in real estate or work with investors, and I know that for certain because I've talked to quite a few of them, and we've talked about certain things like electrical issues and whatnot. And as I mentioned in just the brief introduction I gave, that Ann and I have become quick friends here, and she's been great to deal with. I want to preface that. But as I discussed in an earlier show, we bought a 12-unit apartment building, and we did all of our due diligence that we thought we were to do. In fact, we did hire. We had an inspection that was done, and we even had I had a conversation with a plumber, and we discussed it. And the question was asked of me: do I want to inspect the lateral lines or just the main stack? And after a short conversation, I said, "Well, let's just do the stack and make sure we're good out to the street there." And oh my goodness! I wish that I had could rewind that clock there just a bit there and have inspected a little bit more there. But with that kind of as the basis of how we've gotten to know each other and some of the work that we've had the opportunity to engage your services on, you and I talked a little bit, and I thought it'd be helpful for the listeners to kind of get a feel for some of the things that they could do when buying a property with respects to plumbing. And I'm wondering if maybe we start back just before that as to if you can identify some critical ages for plumbing, if that would be a wise place to start, because obviously I would assume the newer property wouldn't have as much concern, but what do you think? Are there
Correct.
some critical ages?
Absolutely. Well, I know here in Florida, mid to late 70s is when we switched over from cast iron drain lines to PVC. And so, you still have a transition there where people were learning how to use the new product and stuff. But basically, any cast iron that you see, if you do see it, it's going to be anywhere from 75 years old to maybe 30 years old. And it is an excellent product. It really is. It did its job. It's lasted a very long time. It's just at that point in time where it's kind of outdated and would need to be replaced. And definitely the age of the house.
In the cast iron, we're talking about the waste lines. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, the drain lines.
Okay, and that would be like from the roof, the stack out to the street. Is that?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that would be a good indicator as to the age, not only the age of the house being built, but the condition of the facility, would be that if it's already replaced outside where it's easy access, you're just digging a trench and you're replacing, and now you have PVC outside, you know that there's already been a problem with the system. And that would be the first step to make it repaired and making it working better, is to replace the outside. Because, of course, that's the easiest and less expensive means of a repair. So if you're, looking to purchase a building and you see that outside it's PVC and inside it's cast iron, then you're on borrowed time as far as how long it's going to be lasting inside.
Right. And let me ask you this: as far as waistline versus supply lines, is there an age discrepancy there as far as which one and materials used as far as the life expectancy?
Well, I guess all systems fail. So when you buy an older house, I would say anything over 30 years old that hasn't had a replaced drainage system or a water supply system, that has to be something that's going to be considered as needing to be done, somewhere in the next 10 years of purchasing. It could be the next day. It could be, the following year. It could be a little bit further off in the future. But if it hasn't been replaced yet, then it definitely would need to be considered. Water lines, a lot of times the older ones are copper. And copper, again, is a great material. And it really kind of depends on the environment it's in as to how long it lasts. I know here in Florida we have a lot of acid or we have a lot of minerals and stuff in our soil, and it eats through the copper a little bit quicker than in other locations. And then you have the different time frames of when the copper was manufactured as to the quality and the thickness of the walls. And that's a big, that's something to consider as well.
Is supply lines, is that when on the copper, is that if they're exposed to soil? Is that the primary concern there, or is it if they're just in the wall? Is that an issue too?
Well, there's a lot of things that cause copper to fail. Again, it's just, water kind of eventually takes everything. So you can have systems that last 50, 60, 70 years, and you have some systems that last, 10 to 20. Same product in just maybe how it was installed, what it's exposed to, yes. And being in the walls and being in the ground is a lot different. Usually you have the failures are underneath the slab and in the ground before it's in the walls. But, if you had somebody install it and they didn't clean off the pipe of all the flux, which is the acid that you use when you connect it, it has a lot of problems with it. There's some other you drill a hole through your copper pipe when you're putting up a picture. That could be a problem. Any pipe, I guess.
Yes,
not just copper.
Not a good thing.
No.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. As an insurance broker, I've had a couple of claims over the years where the original new construction had actually punctured, whether it be a waste line or a supply line or whatever, and somebody had undone that, or the temperature had changed or something, and all of a sudden it was kind of a riddle trying to figure out where's the leak coming from, kind of thing.
Yes, I've actually seen that myself too. It's very it's like 2 years later, and now there's water in the wall, and you open it up, and there's a nail in the pipe from the original install, and it's like, wow,
yeah,
not that long.
Yeah, no, exactly, and no, it didn't show itself on the day everybody was making the purchase.
Right.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about, an older building, and we can use mine if you want as an example, or if you've got others,
okay.
Happy to talk about that. But I think where I'd like to see is if we can't kind of go as far as some things that, buyers should be aware of, some steps that they can take, and things that if they are doing a plumbing inspection that you would expect to have occur in order to get a clean bill of health for the plumbing.
Right. Well, let's see. That's a heavy load there. So if I were to do a plumbing inspection on any facility, a house or an apartment, like your apartments, let's say, it's a 12-unit apartment complex, I would go in, and the first thing I would do is turn on all the water everywhere and just kind of overload the drains as much as I can. I mean, that's how we size the drainage system, is if everything was on at the exact same time, it has to be able to handle that load. So, you start, and unfortunately, in your particular case, within the first unit or two, you would have noticed that there was some problems, some really serious problems going on. So that is a great indicator. A camera, when you run a sewer camera, that is a very beneficial tool, but it doesn't always get into your waste arms, which are your smaller drains that are attached to your kitchen sink, and then they go over to your main stack. It's difficult to see exactly what is going on in those lines. I mean, you can open up the cabinets and look underneath and see what kind of material you have coming out of the wall, whether it's copper or PVC. That's a good indicator. Copper drain lines really don't work very well. They have a pretty short lifespan, just because of the fact that there's usually water. It's not under pressure. It's not moving. It's kind of sitting on them, and it just corrodes them pretty quickly. So if I were, that's what I would do. You're looking at water lines. You're seeing what kind of material is the water lines are made out of. In your particular apartment, I noticed that there was a lot of concrete patches on the first floor, which would indicate that they've had numerous leaks on the water lines, and they have to open up the concrete and repair the water line, and then they patch it. So, right. Those are things that you would want to look for. Like, now you know that the system is already weak. And with water lines, when you have a water supply line and you have a compromise in it and it breaks. Now, that didn't just happen overnight. That has been slowly building up. It was just a drip over years. And then finally it just explodes, and there's water everywhere, and you can hear it. And, it's like you have a faucet on. So everything has kind of been on a lower pressure level. All the fixtures, all the angle stops, all the pipe, all the fittings. Then you repair that one, and that's obviously the worst one going on right now. And when you repair it, everything goes back up to pressure again.
Right.
And then all the other weak spots down the road, down the line from that, start showing themselves.
Yeah, they get a little more pressure against them, right?
Correct, yeah. And then you also have, with the copper lines, you have scale on the inside of the copper water lines. And when you take all the pressure off, because you have to turn the water off to make the repair, of course, you can't do that while there's water dumping everywhere, all the scale falls down out of the pipes. And the scale is actually it's working as a seal on those lines. So, then that's another factor that would definitely make it chase down the pipes. Other times you get holes in your copper lines or your water lines because there's a little pebble on the outside, and it's been rubbing on the pipe over years, and it finally burst through. So that would be kind of a leak that wouldn't really chase through the system, if that makes sense.
Right. Be just more of a specific point there.
Correct. Kind of like the nail in the pipe. It's an outside force working on it versus the quality of the install or the pipe itself. So.
Gotcha. Well, to turn everything on just seems too easy and obvious. If you did turn everything on and there's water pouring out everywhere, that's probably a problem. And at that point, I guess you could draw some conclusions on estimated cost to repair, and then either make a decision whether or not to proceed based on that, or adjust your pricing, based on that as well. So you turn on all the supply lines, you test all the waste lines because now you're running full throttle through the system. Would you expect to see some supply line issues as well?
You could notice some supply line issues as well. You would see if if the water is leaking from any of the angle stops or the supply lines to the fixtures. Really, I guess the best way to test a water system, like the water supply system, would be to make sure that everything is turned off and all water sources are turned off. There's no water being ran, and then you take a look at your meter or meters and see if there's anything leaking, if you have any water moving.
Right.
At that point, you can go through and kind of isolate and look at, maybe it's just a toilet running, which is a pretty easy fix.
Right.
None of my toilets are running. Okay, so where is the water going? That's obviously an indicator that there's something not good going on.
Yep. No, I've had a few of those. Trying to remember, I think we had a tree root that grew and grew and grew and grew and burst a water main underneath. And the only way we could figure it out was when we got the water bill. The next month it was like twice what it was normally, and I know the water company, the jurisdiction we were dealing with, they were really cool about it. They said, well, as long as you'll go fix it, we'll and show us that you fixed it, then we'll bring it back down to that the prior month kind of thing. So that was kind of but it was funny because that was about the only way you could tell was when you got the bill. So
right, yeah, and that's all in there with the meter and everything. So yep, and that happens a lot. I get those phone calls at least pretty much on a weekly basis where my water bill just tripled, or
Is that pretty well a trenching kind of a thing anymore, or do you drag the line through? Or I know I was surprised at how I was expecting somebody to have to dig up the whole yard, and they actually dragged a line from point A to point B, or I don't know what the right word is, but the disruption above the ground was very minimal. Is that
right? Yeah, the trenchless. I haven't had the opportunity to use or see any of the jobs like that down here in Florida. Our ground's pretty easy to dig in, so we aren't. And our water lines only have to be 8 inches below the ground, so that's a big difference too. I know up north you have your freeze levels and everything has to be deeper, and so it's not quite as cost efficient down here to have those.
Sure.
But I have done research on it, and it looks pretty amazing. I would like to go to one of those jobs and take a look at it. So
yeah, well,
where they pull it through. Yeah.
Well, if you have like a parking lot or something like that, it can be I assume, I don't know what blacktop costs and stuff, but or concrete. I know that going under a street or roadbed or something like that, it's beneficial that way. Yeah. But well, let's talk. So we've acknowledged that age of the systems are probably your best clue, and then how to make an easy determination if you might have some problems. We talked about if there's signs of you've already got some PVC lines that have replaced the cast. You've probably got some other issues waiting for you. We've also talked about turning on the water full blast to see how the drain lines handle it, and look at the supply line from the standpoint of the meter and see if you got anything running. So that all makes sense to me. Let's talk about the fixtures and the life expectancy of that kind of thing. So you got your faucets, your toilets, your showers, and that. Is there any
water heaters? And
thank you. Water heaters. Yep, almost forgot about that. Is there any life expectancy rules on these items?
Oh, well, as with everything else these days, Darren, it's kind of sad to see that the quality of the manufacturers, it's not there. They want you to have to replace everything in 5 years or less. So I have seen old shower valves in apartments like you have just purchased still functioning from before, and they are doing just fine. That's like 60 years old. That's just remarkable. Now, when you replace it, you're going to be, maybe 10 years, you'll be doing really good. And you might possibly have to replace it in 5. It just kind of depends on the quality of water going through your fixtures and what kind of buildup it is causing. Again, water's pretty corrosive. It's a powerful force, and it will ruin things. So,
is it just water that's corrosive, or is there like certain agents in the water that in different
like
areas?
The calcium. Calcium is really hard and tough. It causes a big buildup. That's one of the biggest ones down here. I know there's other like iron levels and stuff in water. Just whatever it is that is in your area that builds up in the lines. There's lots of resources where you can find where it is. There's a lot of systems that clean the water, purification systems for your whole house and stuff that may prolong the life of your plumbing fixtures. I think really high-quality plumbing fixtures is the best way to go as far as when you pick out a new faucet or something. You want to get one with a brass or a metal body. It will be a lot heavier than the other one. It's going to cost a lot more. But I think in the long run it's beneficial because when you get a plastic body on the inside of a faucet, you will be needing to replace it the following year. So
the
it doesn't
plastic
last
is
as
just
long.
it doesn't last. Makes sense.
It doesn't. Yeah.
And is there a preference? You mentioned the brass, or what was the other? Just metal, or is there?
Yeah, it's mainly brass bodies. The brass does really good on inside the fixtures. It handles the pressure well. And I think that they're able to make the molds so they're nice solid pieces versus having to piece it together. So I'm a Delta girl. I like Delta faucets. They're very easily rebuilt with their cartridges and stuff. And they have an excellent policy for returns. And they're just easy to work with as far as they guarantee their product for life. And they will, as long as you own the house, they will send you cartridges and new parts. I've even had them send brand new faucets and everything if they've discontinued something. So that's a pretty good company to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, in this, like you said, in this day and age of everything wearing out and having to replace, that's good to know, because the little bit of plumbing I've done, I've found, especially in the older stuff, that there was no two brands had any similarities at all. They all
they're all different, yes.
I mean, my God, way different. Looks the same. No. That's that's kind of
the outside looks the same, but yeah.
Yeah, the thread of the screw was different, and kind of thing, and everything was just crazy different.
It is very true. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, any other? On the life expectancy of that kind of stuff, is that just? I know. Let's talk about this real quick. So, if somebody's managing, or if the property manager is managing properties, what are some must do when you're turning a property, or if you're inspecting a property? What are some areas to pay attention to?
I don't know if I quite understand. So, if you're prior to purchasing, or when you're...
No, I'm going to say you're already you own or you're operating the property, and you've got a tenant that's that's left, and now you're in there.
Now you're in there. I really think that it's key to make sure all your angle stops work, which are the valves that are at the wall that connect your supply lines to your fixtures on your sinks and your toilets. Those are very important to make sure those work in between tenants, I would think, because if you do have something that happens and you can't turn the water off there, it could cause some problems. I would say wobbling or leaking toilets would be something you would really want to take care of and make sure. Functioning shower valves, making sure they're not leaking in the wall. And they're turning on and off, and they're not constantly dripping. With a shower valve, if you are able to change the cartridge like every 2 years versus waiting for it to completely fail, that's a really good preventative maintenance. Because sometimes the cartridge in a shower valve will get stuck, you cannot get it out, and then you have to open up the wall and replace the whole valve.
Wow.
So that's a pretty important thing. Cartridges in your faucets and stuff, every 2 years you should probably get them switched out, and even if they're still functioning.
What's the cost of a valve? I mean, not the valve, but the cartridge.
So for cartridges range anywhere from $20 to $40.
All right.
And that's just for the material itself.
And how much time does that take a skilled plumber to?
On average, probably about a half hour, 45 minutes. So it'd be like an hour of labor, and $45 or $40 in material. So that's, versus having to replace the whole valve and opening up the wall, where you're looking at a valve cost like $150 to $200 for the valve and the trim.
Right.
And then you have to repair the wall that's being opened, and, it's probably 3 to 4 hours worth of labor. So.
Got it. Now, maintenance. You mentioned hot water tanks before I took you down this this path. What are some things you can tell us about hot water tanks we should be concerned about? Hot water heaters typically come with a 6-year warranty on them, which means after 6 years you're on borrowed time. I believe that a water heater that's over 10 years old should probably just be replaced before it explodes. Or not explodes, but, starts leaking. And no, they don't really explode. I've never seen that. Only on TV, is it?
Only, exactly. I've seen them make them do it on Mythbusters, but it took a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I've never seen one explode. But leaking, I have seen some really bad floods from water heaters, because it's basically just a 40 or 30 or 20 gallon tank of water sitting there, and once it starts leaking, then all that water is going everywhere. Even if you can turn your valve off to the water heater, you still have 20 gallons of water, or 30 or 40 or 50, however big it is, that will be draining out of it and going everywhere. So you look for rust at the top, or corrosion where the the cold water is coming in, the hot water is coming out. On the side of it, there's a seam where there could be some water. You could do, like, the way a tank water heater is built is it's a stainless steel tank on the inside, and then it has a layer of foam insulation, and then it has like that apron wrapped around it of the metal. So you can have a hole in that tank anywhere, and it's only going to, come through the insulation and the seams of the outside apron. So you'll see them along the seams on the top or on the bottom. you can look in your pan, your water heater pan, and see if there's any water down there. Another thing with water heaters is the temperature pressure relief valve, which is there. So if your water heater gets too hot, it can get rid of water. Those sometimes fail. Sometimes those valves fail. They don't actually keep a good seal anymore, and they just leak, and that can be replaced. So,
no, been there, done that.
Yeah.
So, water heaters. We talked about fixtures. We didn't touch much on toilets. We talked about kind of around the floor of that, but is there any? I mean, toilet's pretty flapper, or the float. Is there a whole lot more to it, or is it? I mean,
okay. So, there's a lot to a toilet. So you have your flapper. Of course, everybody knows what a flapper is. That's pretty easy to change. And actually, some of the toilets that you have at your apartment complex down here in Florida, oh my, they are like the original toilets from, I think, is it the late 60s your apartments were built, or?
Yeah, I think it was early 60s.
Early 60s, right. So they have the original toilets with the original guts in them. So they have never had new floppers put on. They've never had anything new.
Still
they have
working
metal
like a
fill valves. They're still, well, they're not working like a champ. I wouldn't call it a champ, but they're still functioning.
Only so that's like a 4-gallon flush, right?
It is a lot of water. I mean, the tank is just, it's a big tank. So,
yeah.
But you have your fill valve, you have your flush valve. There's all sorts of different styles and kinds that have come out recently, or not even recently, but they're just trying to change the inside of it. They have different towers and different flapper styles, and I like the basics. I like to keep with your basic fill valve and your flapper and the flush valve. I think they work just fine. So I wouldn't jump into these new towers where it's supposed to be water saving, and it has all of these mechanical mechanisms inside the toilet to make it flush better. And
right. Battery operated toilets.
Yeah. You stand up and it flushes by itself. I mean, it's neat. Really, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Probably not going to happen in my rentals, but
right. Gosh, I hope not. Those things are not fun to work on.
All right, so we've gone from the waistline, we've gone through the supply line, we've gotten through the fixtures, the hot water tanks, the toilets. Is there anything we're missing on a plumbing? Is that pretty much the stem to stern, or what have we overlooked?
Gosh, it seems like we've pretty much gone through everything as far as the basics go. I mean, you always have if you're on well, you have pumps and that sort of thing.
Oh, right, or some pumps, or I guess low or
lift stations on the septics and stuff. But just for your basics, I think we've covered quite a bit. You do have your garbage disposal. I don't think we discussed that at all. Not
right. Hookup.
Dishwashers attached underneath the sink and stuff like that. But
right. Now we might have to have a 2.0 conversation here. Come back and do. But no, you're right though, because dishwasher. What's an average life expectancy of a dishwasher?
Oh, not long enough. That would be my opinion of them. Usually like 2 years. If you get your standard.
2 years? Yeah.
2 to 3 years on just your standard basic dishwasher.
That's crazy.
That's how I feel about it too. They usually come with a 1-year manufacturer's warranty,
that's crazy. What about the garbage disposals?
Garbage disposals are usually like 3 to 4 years. as long as you take care of it and you use it. That's the main thing with a garbage disposal. If you have one, even if you're not putting food or anything down there, you got to turn it on and make those wheels work every once in a while, at least once a week. Or they will rust and they'll corrode, and then your drain will be full of rust, and that's no good. So,
got it. Okay, I got one more question for you. So, okay. What is the worst situation you've come upon in your plumbing repair world?
What category are you saying worst in?
I'll let you decide. Hopefully you don't name me by name.
No, I would think for me personally, my least favorite and unpleasant job that I ever did was clearing out a sewer for an apartment complex, and I think they have about 20 units there, and they were all backed up completely, and it was draining into the area where I had to go to get it cleared out. So that was very unpleasant.
Ew.
And I did not enjoy that at all.
Yeah. No, forget about that, or I forget about that sometimes. What all goes through the plumbing there? So, but that would not be good. So
no, that wasn't fun at all.
Got it. Well, Ann, I appreciate you taking the time to do this today. Is there a good way for any listeners, if they're in your area, or if they'd like to reach out to you for questions? Is there a way to get in touch with you?
Well, sure. I have, of course, my phone number. You can reach me there. It's 321-242-6700. Or you can reach me by email, which is Roman Plumbing, CFL, like Central Florida, @gmail.com. And I would love to have your questions.
Well, I thank you so much for doing this again, and I'm sure you and I will be talking soon, and
sure.
I'll look forward to doing that.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Darren. Right. You have a great day.
All right, thanks, Ann. Just a reminder for all of you, if you're on LinkedIn, be sure to check out our group, Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. It's a great place to network with commercial real estate professionals. Also, if you like this interview, the best way to let us know is to go to iTunes and give us a 5-star review, and also subscribe if you'd like, and that way you can listen anytime or anywhere you like. We know you're busy. We thank you for making time for us today. We do appreciate you. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.